Hey everybody, Nathan Masters here with Brick System Brothers. Just wanted to do a little video about my keychain. It is kind of an interesting little deal that I've noticed. It's really starting to wear down, so I thought I would just compare this with a brand new 2x8 yellow brick and just kind of talk about, what does a Lego piece look like after a couple years of wear and tear. So my sister actually made this for me as a birthday present before I went to school, to college. For my first year and a half of college, I was using a different keychain, and then that one broke, and so I got this one out and hooked it up to all my keys, and I've used it ever since. So really grateful for that. At the time, she actually asked me for a Lego piece that I would be okay with parting with, and I was like, well, what are you going to do to it? I was kind of concerned, but she gave me the piece back with just one hole drilled through the center tube out on the end, and that ends up being right in between the four studs on one end of the 2x8. So this is just like a little ceiling pull for like a ceiling fan, a little chain pull. It is a little bit loose in the hole in the tube. I think it's about the same diameter as just the inner tube, so about a stud would be how big the hole is. But the actual clasp section of the chain, if you pull this through, it's actually a really good fit in terms of being loose enough to pull out if you need to take the chain apart, but at the same time pretty snug, so it's not just gonna fall out while you're carrying it around in your pocket. So I've got car keys on here, apartment key, and then this kind of paracord thing on here from Uncle Kevin. But the Lego brick itself has been constantly on the keychain for the past 2.5 years now, so somewhere in there, wearing in my pocket. So the biggest thing is going to be these rounded corners. Let's just bring in the comparison brick and just do initial comparison. Color is going to be pretty constant because this ABS plastic is really color fast, so even it hasn't been out in the sun all that much or anything like that, so that's helping a little bit. But in terms of being worn down, that's not really affecting the color at all. What is being affected is the corners and edges is actually probably the most affected. And you can just see where that's just been worn smooth in my pocket after 2.5 years. The other thing that's really interesting is up here by the chain where this has kind of been rotating, and especially when this does work its way out eventually, that chain kind of drags along on the surface. And so as you can see there, it's actually started to wear around the perimeter of these upper studs. On our smooth control, everything is pretty much pristine, and then on the worn keychain we're almost to the edge of the L on the Lego logo on these studs. So it's not that much raised off the surface of the stud, but it is there. It's legible, but yeah, getting this really worn will eventually bring that surface. I think it's just rounding this corner off to the point where the amount of plastic that's been worn off is comparable to the amount of plastic used to build up the letters of the logo. As far as the underside goes, it's just kind of some lint and dust in there, so it's not really caked with anything. I mean, I don't regularly clean it, but I do check every once in a while to make sure there's not stuff down inside. So I actually haven't had a big problem with things getting stuck in there. I don't keep a lot of stuff in my pockets, I guess, so that might be part of it, but it's definitely noticeable in terms of having some dust and some lint build up. So I'm sure that could get scrubbed out if I put this through a little wash of water. And then the other thing is just kind of some dents and scratches along the sides. I mean, it's traveling with metal. Metal is harder than plastic, so this is rubbing all against it all day in my pocket or in my car. It's just, let's see, which one is this one's in the ignition, so all these are just hanging down. It's a little constant wear that will get you, because it doesn't seem like much when it's just one or two rubs or bumps, but do that constantly for a couple years, and that's what really wears it down. So yeah, just an interesting comparison here from the used 2.5-year-old keychain. Probably the biggest thing is just these corners just really worn down and completely getting smoother. So it'll be interesting to see what this looks like after another 2 years or so. I'm gonna keep using it. It's pretty cool. What I don't really like to do is actually build stuff on it. Like some people will put minifigs on it and stuff, and there's minifigure keychains sold by Lego, and I mean the same thing happens to those. They just get worn down and rubbed by the metal and just worn out. So I like having just a plain brick because it's not necessarily like really high in value, but it still has that durability that you want to see out of a keychain that's going to be traveling with you a long time. That's it. See you guys.